I'm sure these players are both going to play great. All right. Oh, so I guess it must be Dave going first. Oh man, we're going to see a bingo quick here for Dave. So not much to think about here. Dave is very, very likely to see that he has a 7-letter bingo. And the only question is, where will he play it? And I think he's going to opt to double the G, which is his lone tile that scores more than 1 point. So a very quick start to the game for Dave Wiegand, who is a pretty automatic bingo finder. For Conrad, though, he has a bingo in response. A little tricky, a Collins only word, but he's gotten one of the letters, maybe the only letter that he needed to get a bingo down in response. And this is going to be big to see if he spots it here. Dave with, oh, I think he does. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, so I know for a fact that Conrad's been grinding for quite a while to work towards mastery of the Collins Dictionary. And I think of Conrad as being a really, really good play selector, right? Like he selects plays better than almost anybody I can think of. If ever he had a weakness, it would be just knowing as many words as most of his peers at his rating level. So he has been working to rectify that, and dispaced is going to go down, and that is just what he needs here to respond to Dave's opening bingo. Very nice. He spots it. He's probably agonizing slightly over whether this is a word, but it certainly is. And that will even up the game at 70 points apiece. So Dave with not the best post bingo draw. It has 2 R's and a U in it. There's some reason for hope that maybe he'll come up with something in the next couple of turns, as we see Conrad drawing. Well, we like to see the S for Conrad, but not the 3 O's. So after both players bingoing to start, things are going to slow down a little bit as both players have some issues to work through. First crack at working through those issues is going to be Dave. He's going to try to get rid of the U and at least one of his R's, and potentially a bunch more tiles besides. It looks like he was considering playing herding to the G of Algesia. That seems pretty reasonable. I don't know. I would probably, in Dave's shoes, I would probably try to come up with a way to play something a little bit shorter. I might be tempted to play something like Runch through the C of Dispaced. The reason for wanting to play Runch is just that you do have some good bingo tiles here, right? You want to sort of acknowledge that if you can score decently well and keep a few of those good bingo tiles on your rack, it behooves you to do so. Jalapic says the standings are ridiculous. Yeah, in case anybody is just joining, there are literally 9 players tied at 6 and 3 in the standings right now. That's amazing. Nobody is any higher than that. 9 players all in a logjam with spread, the tiebreaker between them. And Dave Wiegand is still at the top of that pile. So Dave was in first place going into today. He lost his first game, but remains in first place by virtue of his still over 1,000 points of spread. And he's going to play Ungirth. That looks good. That looks fine. I think that's a solid choice. I think in Conrad's shoes here, it does give a really, really nice place to pop 2 of those O's down if he wants to. Not that togas or goats is that good of a leave. But just plopping two O's down alongside the T and the C and the H and the E, yeah, you can see there the analysis board seems to like that just because it gets rid of your issue with the three O's. And, you know, it's not, goats is not a great leave, but it's good enough, especially with that S, that Conrad can draw into bingos here. And you can see Dave is going to be really hard pressed to do very much productively on this turn with that rack. That's really not a good draw for Dave. Dave had just left a lone R after Ungirth and drew TTNNEV. So that you could definitely do better than that. So let's see what Conrad draws. This is a big inflection point. Oh, okay. I'm not seeing anything there for Conrad yet. Maybe there isn't anything. Yeah, I guess not. So both players are going to have to wait a little bit longer to get their next bingo down, which is fine. Nice. And this is so far so good with the even game that we were hoping for. Oh man, there is a pretty nice. So, okay. So obviously in this situation, Dave has one vowel only. So it's going to be tempting for him to just play something for very few points, getting rid of only consonants, leaving really good bingo tiles. But oh, night. So I was building up towards this, right? What I was going to say is that if he spots this really tricky, disconnected play, he can actually grab a few more points while he's at it and actually score decently. He just got 20 something points. And now, oh, look at that. Okay. And as if, you know, a reward, you know, to reward him for that, he's drawn quite well, but wow, the board is really tight. Okay, he has altered and stuff like that. So at the very least, he has altered going down under the T of Vernon, or I guess on top of the A of Algesia. So nicely done by Dave to grab at what I think is clearly correct play. 20 something points from a rack of 6 consonants and only 1 vowel on a closed board. That's classic Dave Wiegand in the sense that he found a way, in a very tricky way, to keep a little bit of scoring pressure on there in a situation where there were basically no other ways to do so than finding a really tricky play. That's what Dave does. So Conrad is in a situation where he has good bingo tiles marred by the G, the duplicated A's, and the O. So he will have incentive to get rid of some combination of A, G, O wherever he can. So I wonder if he'll opt. I mean, this board does have a nice feel to it to Conrad. I wonder what he's going to consider to be like the biggest threat to start attacking. Does he want to keep things closed? I doubt it. I think he probably wants to get the next bingo down. I think the Algesia's hook is something that he wants to keep open rather than closed. So if I had to guess what he plays here, I would say maybe he'll play goal parallel to Ungirth, making OU and AN, and just keep ARST. I don't know. Tricky. This is a really tricky one. These sorts of positions are ones that Conrad thinks really deeply and well about. And I would definitely defer to his expertise. Let's see what he comes up with after his deliberation. Okay, so Gal. Tragle. Oh man, that would be really something. Well, that other one I don't think is going to be played. This is a really, really tough move here just because nothing is going to feel particularly great. And he just plays gal. Yep, there you go. So that was the play that the computer, that's the play the computer wanted. This is nice just because the O actually might not hurt the leave of ARTS that much, just because even though the O is not the best bingo vowel, it is a vowel and it lends balance to that leave. So keeping 2 vowels and 3 consonants in general is a nice mix that's going to improve Conrad's chances of bingoing. So Dave is going to respond with a bingo here for sure. And we'll see what Conrad draws. It's pretty important for Conrad that if he doesn't draw a bingo, that he draws some heavy scoring letter. Let's see, he draws an I and an R. Okay. So if altered is the play, there will be several choices for Conrad to bingo back. And fully expect to see that materialize here. Alerted or altered, I think those 2 plays are, I don't think there is any difference to my eye between the 2 of those. I guess altered is maybe slightly better just because that R is slightly more difficult to underlap than the T would be if you played alerted. But this is real. Oh, wait, no, altered is better because of the Z hook on top. Yeah, Jello Mochas, you got it. I saw it a little late. So this is definitely better. Altered is better to avoid setting up a vowel underneath the triple letter score. Yep, just had to visualize it. So the right choice for Dave for sure. And Conrad will have a couple choices of counter bingos here. I wonder what he's going to choose. Man, there's a couple different ones. So the highest scoring is roariest through the E of altered. That does set up a big, easy spot to the triple by putting a vowel right there. Dave doesn't really have a great play, and that's what Conrad will do. He's just going to live with the risk of this, and it's not really going to bite him that hard here. He's taking extra points. That's the highest scoring bingo that he has available. So he keeps pace. And this is a big inflection point here again. I know I already said that, but the reason this matters here is that Dave doesn't really have very good letters. He's certainly not bingoing. If Conrad manages to draw well here, something good out of the bag, this is where he could take control of this game. So let's see what happens. Dave will have his pick of some nice scoring plays. Parallel to roariest going down through the R of altered, there are a couple options that score pretty well. Just bear, B-E-A-R-E in that spot will score nicely. Oh, and there it is. Okay, so the nice draw again that we were saying, if Conrad can get it, it might help him take command of the game. He's drawn pretty well. He's got a blank. You like to see that. Yep, there we go. There's the analysis board showing a couple of the good options, including the aforementioned bear in that spot. I do think that Dave is so precise. I really feel like he's very, very likely to see stuff like that. And if that's what he does opt to do, then Conrad will have stuff like 14 through the T of altered. So definite bingos available. I think Conrad will see that. It does make a big hook. But as long as Dave doesn't draw an S after his next play, it's just going to become a race to hit that hook of 14s. So we'll have to see. Oh, there's also footered. Yes, footered there too. That would put a letter in the triple lane, put a D in the triple lane, but at least it wouldn't be a scary S hook. So, all right, let's back up first. Rather than continue to look for Conrad's next play, let's just keep sweating Dave's next play. I think okay. You can see he sort of separated the two sets of letters on his rack. Yeah, there it is. He has BEAE set up on the rack. He's clearly spotted this overlap that scores quite well. The other thing that's nice about it is, given that he has too many vowels to play effectively through the A of Roryist, this play uses up that spot and really takes the sting out of that double letter score, triple word score combination at that middle right side of the board. So this looks like a really good play to me. No surprise, Dave's so precise. It's just so machine-like. He's really good at finding plays like that, and not a good draw for him here. Not a good draw for Dave. So Conrad is going to be looking around, and yeah, looks like these are the only, I assume, the only two bingos. The only question is, do you think that putting a blank D in the triple lane is worth 2 more points, or is it okay? I mean, it could be fine to play for the extra 2 points, or is he going to elect instead to play just 14, making a pretty big S hook? There are 2 S's on the board. I think those plays are probably pretty close. So from Dave's perspective, he doesn't really have very much that he'll be able to do after either of those 2 plays. I don't think. That doesn't look to me like there's a great play that would play to a D in a triple lane from this rack. So Conrad can't know this. Of course, there are some situations where picking one or the other of those 2 between Footered and 14 would make a huge difference in the game. It happens to not make that big of a difference here, I don't think. Again, I could be missing something. But yeah, with a blank on the rack, you gotta look, right? You have to do your work with that blank and try to think, what could I have here? What could I have there? On this particular board, because Conrad has E's on his rack, he has to at least entertain the possibility that he might have a 7-letter word that plays alongside Roryist on the right. Dave does have balk. Yeah. Good suggestion from BA that Dave just made with his play of bear. He could just dump off his W and K for a very high score. But even then, I do expect Conrad to bingo here for sure. With 2 options to find, I think we're likely to see. And I don't think either of them is so dangerous that he's going to opt to not play them for any reason. So we'll just have to see what he does. If he was going to not bingo, the plays available to him look considerably worse than bingoing. So if you see these words, it feels pretty clear cut. So after his previous play, Dave is up solidly. You can see in the score, 216, 171. So Conrad will, okay, here's the bingo lined up. Very likely to see that go down here. Okay, so all right, you can see Conrad literally just rapidly set up both of the bingo options, and he is evaluating them now. He's thinking about 14 versus Footered. He just set up the 2 different spellings of them on his rack and just got to pick between them. In these situations, I try to tell myself, like, once I've narrowed it down to these 2 plays, even though the nuances between these 2 plays are significant, right? They're very different. Putting a letter in the triple lane versus making an S hook. Try to figure out what Dave's previous play tells you, which isn't really much. I guess it tells you vowel heaviness, actually, right? Like if Dave had good consonants in reserve, it seems like he would be likelier to have had to play through the A to the triple as opposed to parallel. Also, Dave just used up 2 E's. That's kind of scary. Maybe the likelihood of Dave having another E is slightly higher after that. So maybe putting a D in the triple lane is a little scary, and Conrad will play 14 instead. But it looks like he's going to be undeterred. I don't think the things that I just described are that relevant, and he's going to go ahead and play for a couple extra points. Probably thinking, I think I get maybe part of the reasoning here is that by playing this, if Conrad doesn't draw an S, he'll still be able to close up this D on a subsequent turn if Dave doesn't play there. However, if Conrad were to play 14 and not draw an S, it would be very, very difficult to, I mean, you would draw a play from TA, a Vernant and Altered that goes down to that triple. But otherwise, if you play 14 and don't draw an S, that spot's going to stay there unblocked for quite a while. It's going to be very difficult to close. So I think Footered has the advantage of scoring 2 more points. And assuming Dave doesn't have a great play to the D now, it makes it much easier for Conrad to block off that area later if he doesn't draw perfectly. That's the best guess that I have into the logic. I think it's a perfectly justifiable play. Oh yeah, 14 does set up more bingo lines. It's true. That's a really good point as well. I did not say that. Yeah, the F being one spot higher creates bingo lines that are pretty annoying. So I think in Dave's shoes, you kind of have one shot to do something nice through that D on the bottom of the board, and if you don't hit it, then Conrad should very easily be able to deal with it as long as he draws any kind of vowels, which he has not done. Okay, the Y saves him. Oh, wow. Okay, so Conrad drawing the second blank immediately. You can see that he could just play WYND if he wants to the blank D of Footered. That Y saving him in his ability to address that spot on a subsequent turn. Yeah, Dave is not behind by that much in the scoreboard. So the aforementioned play by Jelomokos of just balk from the B and the A looks pretty good. And there it goes down pretty quickly. That's definitely his highest scoring choice here. Almost 40 points, 39. So Conrad almost unable to deal with that open D at the base of the board, but I feel like Conrad is going to be very happy to just play something like WYND to that D of Footered and feel like he's in a good spot on a really constricted board, which again, that is a board that he feels comfortable on. Well, Dave is up though, so I don't know. Tricky. How closed off do you want to be? Down. So Conrad down 20 going into this turn. I don't know. Tawny burning the blank for 45 is actually pretty close to some of these others. But yeah, I think Wind leaving NGS blank is very strong. I think it creates a board, and he can sort of give Dave some credit eventually, probably, to open the board again. I think Dave is naturally inclined to do that. If he has a good scoring play, for example, from like Oxime, right? If he plays Oxime down column M, making RE alongside Roriest, he could do that here, and he's not going to be that scared of doing that. Although Conrad drew a little weirdly. So maybe Conrad saying, all right, I'm going to play Wind to the D of Footered, taking a really narrow lead, just knowing in general, if Dave is going to try to score anything on the resulting board, he's probably going to open stuff up, and NGS blank, you put yourself in a good position to pounce once that happens. So yeah, Oh, that would be a nice. So just XI and GID is kind of a nice way to open things up without exposing anything, if that's what he wants to do. I think Dave is not going to balk that much. No pun intended, balk. Just his previous play there. He's not going to hesitate to open a new scoring spot if he feels like that's his best choice here. Yeah, not apparently it doesn't mean the same thing. I think I knew it wasn't a verb. So tricky choice for Dave here. Either he opens a triple lane that could really be damaging in response by playing down column N, or what? Right? Does he play from? Oh, he might be thinking about playing Vexil to the V. I wonder. Yeah, so Vexil. There are a bunch of choices here that are all reasonable. I think I still don't mind playing Moxie or Oxime or whatever up in the top right hand of the board, even though it opens things, just because it scores a little bit better than any other option. And that's kind of Dave's MO. So if he were to do that, Conrad actually would not be, I guess Moxie would allow a pretty easy just Zin in response, ZIN, alongside to the triple. So that would go well for Conrad, I think. Also, Voxel, how bad is IMU? Squish says bad. Yeah, it is pretty bad. I'm gonna assume that MOU is significantly better. Yeah, the reparallels thing is nice. So Dave, that's a good point. So Dave is going to play Moxie. He'll go up. Well, let me not say that. If Dave plays Moxie, I have no idea what he's actually going to do. Now he has XI. He has XI lined up. He might play that with GID to really give very little back to Conrad. That would be very interesting. That's a very like idiosyncratic play for Dave if he makes a play like that. But so yeah, if we see Oxime or Moxie go down in the upper part of the board, oddly, if Dave plays Oxime, that's going to make things a lot tougher on Conrad to do very much. Moxie is a much easier play for Conrad to just slap Zin down. After Oxime, what even happens? I'm not 100% sure. Just because with only the one, yeah, it could be a blank burning situation if there's something really good. This is tough. I mean, this is just a tough move where there's a lot of different choices. VIZ, yeah, needs a something else. Viz, I feel like that should be a word. I feel like I've seen Viz in print a lot, but maybe it's an abbreviation. So anyway, I think we've identified pretty much all the options here for Dave. Either he plays Moxie or Oxime, making RE alongside Roriest. He could play Vexil. He could play Voxel to the Via Vernant, from the Via Vernant, I should say. Or he could play XI and GID, which would be easily the most defensive, giving nothing back to Conrad at all. Very different choices. I don't think it makes sense for Dave to play Oxime or Moxie on the other side of the R of Rorius for a bunch of fewer points, maybe. I think it says a lot that Dave, normally a very a very decisive, quick player. It says a lot to me that he's taking a long time on this move. Dave typically plays with good pace, very good blitz player, sees moves quickly. He's taking a long time here for good reason, because these plays are really different. They offer different opportunities back to Conrad. Conrad's just played WYND, which is definitely a telling play, nary a vowel in sight, except for that Y. I don't know. I mean, this is a tricky one. Looks like he's getting back to Moxie. At some point, he's going to have to bite the bullet and pick a way forward. Squish Ed, he would do XI. That looks quite reasonable. I would worry about it in this particular situation, because I would just be worried that I'm going to get outplayed on a closed board by Conrad. In this particular situation, there are other situations where I would play XI, because I think that I might be able to outplay somebody else on a closed board, but that's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough ask for anyone, but Dave might be, I mean, Dave is a beast. He should feel like he can outplay anyone at any time. So if he wants to go that route, I'm not going to dispute it. It seems like the average score for your opponent, if you just play XI and GID, is going to be way lower. There's just no great place to play. And that is, I mean, that's worth a ton. That's really nice. What does a sim say? I don't know if James is able to run. I'm a little bit, well, I'm talking so much, I'm a little behind on my local quack. I don't know if we want to test the limits of James's computer. I could probably get back up to speed in just a minute here and try to tell you guys. Yeah, I'm a couple plays behind. Okay. All right, I think I'm caught up here. So yeah, the winning percentage, I'm not so much worried about the winning percentage, but okay, so it says, all right, it's so Moxie wins the sim, but it says that XI allows 26 points per turn to Conrad compared to 42 for Moxie. So you give up 12 points on the scoreboard to play XI over Moxie, and you get 16 of them right back on your next turn. But then, of course, you lose 5 more on your subsequent turn. So yeah, with the reparallels, exactly. So it looks like you come out a couple points ahead with Moxie just by the reparallels that you get. Dave's drawn really weirdly, though. He's drawn in such a way that is going to make it very difficult for him to reparallel. So that doesn't make his play wrong. It just means in this particular situation, he is very unlikely to benefit from the reparallels that we were just talking about. So I got to imagine that Conrad will just play Zin quickly for 42. And that's going to give him a narrow lead. And Dave is, yep, here it comes, nice and quick. I think the nice thing here also, I mean, I don't know if Dave is somebody that I would ever imagine time pressuring, but Conrad also plays very quickly, and it's very possible that, Dave just spent a long time. So if ever there was a time to time pressure Dave, it would be now. There's a lot of game left. It should be noted that Dave has a nice place to play his Q here. He can play with the same spot where he was going to play his X previously with GUID, GID. He can play quite an ante there. So if he has a way of getting rid of his Q, and scoring quite well. There it is. The analysis board showing that nice spot. So choir is pretty good also, but quite looks like it's even better to get rid of one more letter, one more of those consonants off the rack. No pun intended. I didn't think about that when I said quite. Quite is one of these words that appears a lot on the Scrabble tableau of Stocky and others. Seems like everything on those tableau where you use all the letters in the Scrabble set once to make a phrase feels like everything is a quite joyful or quite zany and stuff like that. But yeah, Dave. So James, like a minute ago, just said that Dave was at 6 minutes, and there's a lot of game left here. So lots of game to go. And the clock is ticking. So Dave doesn't have forever to think through all of these subsequent positions. So we'll just have to see if that comes back to matter. I think it can't help but matter just because there is a lot of game. Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, wow. The troll. Oh, and he shakes his head. Oh, man. So he came, so Dave is not somebody I expect to do troll moves like that. I'm pretty sure that he was literally about to play Chi and then realized as he was playing in that spot, oh man, I have something way better. So yeah, that was not I don't think of that as being the trickeration that we've seen on some of the MGI broadcasts. So yeah, this is a really interesting game. That was a good play. Again, the only issue is that you can make a good play instantly, or you can make a good play after spending a minute or two. So Dave took a little more time to identify that play. And yeah, not the draw that Dave wants. There are really no vowels available to help Dave here. So Dave with a narrow lead, but Conrad will have his pick of some decent scoring plays, and then Dave's going to be really hard pressed to score much. So man, right now the score, Dave up by 25 or so. But this this game could be kind of teetering in the balance, swinging a little bit here. Yeah, Manted. I just saw that maybe you could play Manted and just sort of wait it out through ante, right? That's not a bad score. Nice thing about Manted is it also blocks the A of Algesia, which is really the lone realistic threat. And he has the Taj spot too. Yeah, the Taj spot is there for him. I think playing through is likely to be, there must be some way for Dave to play through this and keep scoring. I mean, we saw earlier with Vernant that Dave finds stuff, right? Like he, even under pressure. But if ever there were a chance for Dave to start missing some of these beautiful overlapping plays, it would be now. So Squish Thinks Wiegand is a heavy favorite. I don't know if I would go that far as a heavy favorite. So Quackle, for example, thinks that you can see the numbers there. Like if Conrad plays VAG, it thinks that he's at 71% to win. I agree that those numbers are way too high because they expect Dave to play in a very unrealistic manner, right? He's never going to make plays that open things dramatically. VAG could set up the I. That's true. So playing VAG parallel to Moxie, holding an I, and for Conrad makes it really nice. Like you could draw, just fix. You could draw NIXE and Zine. That would be really nice. If you play VAG and draw NE, you could play quite a high scoring play. And just not, normal stuff like picks and mix and ticks and all of that stuff. So there it goes. So this is interesting. Really, really interesting game in the making here. A lot of things going on. Dave has a ton of consonants, very little time. and a very difficult board that's going to take some doing to navigate. He has a J spot underneath the T and A of Verniton Altered, and he could draw one of 3 O's to set up a big J bomb. Okay, I'm positive that he sees Manted. He just put M and D off to the side. In Dave's shoes, I think he needs to play this as soon as he sees this. He needs to realize that there's going to be many more turns in this game. And I want to see him play this. And there it is. Nicely done. So if Dave manages to draw an O here, that's huge for him. Absolutely huge. If he's able to draw an O and threaten Joe and Taj. Let's see what he gets. This is big. 2-tile draw, 3 O's to come. There we go. Oh, man. There it is. So we see the O that Dave needs. That's going to be huge to threaten that on this board. Just huge. So now what for Conrad? So Conrad continues to have this blank. He did not draw a very appealing. He didn't draw a very appealing play with Vagi to the X there. I think his best option there would be 6, which I would hesitate to do in his shoes. I would be thinking about, is there any way that I can create an opening for myself here that doesn't give Dave much back in response? I don't know what the heck that would be, though. Like, what could Conrad even do that achieves that objective? Would it be possible here for Conrad to Galaxy Brain and play like TABI and block the J? Okay, he said, yeah, it looks like he's gonna play 6, which makes some sense, but it is scary. Okay, 6 looks like a very reasonable pathway to take here. So yeah, he retains an I that he could potentially use with Chi to open the board in a more lucrative way for himself later. So, all right, down quickly goes Joe for 38, which is just a huge score on this particular board. Really, really big score. And now, and Dave draws more vowels, which is helpful. Oh man, this is just a tough. Look at this game. I mean, this is a very un-Collinsy game. So it's been a fun one to watch. I wonder where to go from here for Conrad. He has that I if he wants to try to open something on the top of the board, but it feels like almost anything I could imagine is going to be pretty easily closed off in response. Vibey down from the V of Vernant. I mean, yep, that could be good. You can see that the unseen letters are a little bit heavy in favor of consonants instead of vowels. So a play like Vibey leaving AE blank, maybe that's good. I just Yeah. Okay. I totally Jello Mochas. I totally just meant from the feel of the game. This isn't quite as Collinsy as usual. Just the scores are, neither player has broken 400 yet. That's kind of un-Collinsy, certainly for these two guys who can pile up points quickly. So the feel of the game has been really tactical. As Brenjam says, super high level play. Hello, Brenjam. Nice to see you, of course. What about REI? Setting up your B, right? What about REI and Chi? You set your B up. That's kind of fun. That's kind of annoying to deal with. right? So Bray. What if you just play REI? That kind of feels fun to me. Haha. Yes. Check it out, folks. That could be fun. Now, that's obviously not foolproof, but at least it creates a major, it's a major threat. Beery off the Y of Wind. That seems pretty good too, actually. That seems pretty good. Okay, so Vibey is the play. Hard to find too much fault with this. And the reason I like this is that Conrad may feel like AR blank gives him a better chance of reparalleling Vibey than something that Dave's likely to have. All right, not sure what Conrad's 7th tile is. Man, look at the score. Look at the score of this. So Conrad down 2 going into Dave's next play. Dave has to have almost no time left. Probably both players now, because this game has been so tricky. Okay, you can see it's an O. Dave looks like he's just going to play HOC potentially in the bottom. Hun, he might be playing Hun parallel on the other side of Vibey. Couple different choices down low. I'm sure that Dave is going to address that spot down there. Teraflop, where is that? Am I missing? Does that actually fit somewhere? I'm not seeing it. Oh, teraflop in the bag. Okay, got it. Okay, sorry, misunderstood. Okay, so Dave empties the bag. He plays Hawk for 34. He's up by quite a lot. Conrad with nice letters to work with. Dave with weak letters. Oh man, is this a winnable end game with these nice letters for Conrad? I have no idea at first glance, but it easily could be given how weak Dave's letters are and the fact that now Conrad can reparallel that spot. Right? So Conrad can reparallel the spot that Dave just made with OYE. Okay, so so the full sequence here of Tef, and then let's see, what will Dave do with pulls plus another N, right? I don't even know. Maybe he'll play Souk. And then, no, you can't do that because Conrad just plays after Tef. He has OAR blank and he can play Ors. I'm not 100% sure how the end game plays out after Tef, frankly. But Conrad, yeah, the clocks are a huge factor here for sure. The clocks. Oh man, beautiful. Look at that. Under pressure, surely under pressure. Conrad plays Tef, which is his only win. Dave, okay, the way that Dave played that, I have to assume he has next to no time. And Conrad is going to play Ors and squeak ahead. Oh my God. You can't say he didn't earn that one. Holy crap. Insane. Oh man, there is a lot to cut our teeth into here. Was Souk optimal for Dave? Hold on, I'm behind. Okay, so I have to commit Hawk. Okay, Tef is the only win. I'm just asking championship player. We'll go back to the analysis board, obviously, if we need to look. Tef, the only win. The optimal play for Dave, apparently, is just plopping his S down with, oh, wait, Dave wins? Oh, wait a second. Oh, okay. So All right, let me explain this. Dave is the winner by 1 point. Yes, that's right, Squish. So the winning sequence after Tef is not to go out. And I have to imagine that time pressure was huge for both players, right? For sure. But the only win after Dave plays Souk is for Conrad to play Ward from the W of Balk and Era and Air. So the point there is he plays Ward knowing that Dave has PLLN. So Conrad would score 13 points, 18 points. Let me correct myself. Going down by 12, leaving Dave with PLLN. Dave's best play, he can't do hardly anything. He just would play Poe alongside the O of Foodard. And then with O blank, Conrad again has to slow play. You can't go out yet. The 2-turn sequence after Souk or Opera, yes, Opera as well. But the 2-turn sequence is Ungirth's burning his blank as an S and Lou or some other play with your O. Either way, the point is you have to burn your blank as an S with Hetz and Ungirths and then play your O somewhere for a couple points while Dave has LLN or something like that. So that is the only way to do it. And frankly, that would have been tough enough to spot all of that stuff with a ton of time on your clock. Brutal. Oh my God. Brutal situation there. Incredibly difficult game to play. These two players just played amazingly well. That is really, really high level Scrabble there. It's very difficult to point to a play that is an outright mistake in this game. I'm having a hard time thinking of one as I look back at the quackling here. Just very, very accurate, high-level play by these two extremely strong players. And this is a classic situation where the game itself, like the bulk of the game, was so difficult to play that there are some Scrabble games that play themselves, right? At a certain point. If you're seeing bingos, the only bingo, triples, whatever, like those are not difficult positions to play if you see the moves. This one had a lot of moves for both players that were very difficult to play. And unfortunately for Conrad, it takes time to process those types of moves. And this game also had a really difficult end game that I actually think both of these players are really good end game players, but you got to have enough time. You got to have enough time to play the end game properly and to iterate through different sequences. And that would have been a brutal end game to solve, even under ideal conditions. And this game was far from ideal conditions. Hey, Squish, thanks for hanging out. Catch you later. Yeah, that was you would be hard pressed to top this one. A 1-point win for Dave Wiegand against Conrad. So Dave's spread does not improve tremendously much. So just a quick update on the standings. This game hasn't yet gone through into the standings yet, but once again, the link to this is here if you guys want to see. Hopefully this lets you guys see the standings. You can see there was, again, going into round 10, there was a 9-player logjam at 6 and 3, and you can see it's not gotten that much better. So currently there are 5 players at 7 and 3. We're going to see Dave Wiegand also move to 7 and 3 and catapult his way to the top of the standings again. So there's going to be 6 players at 7 and 3, a handful more at 6 and 4, and 4 rounds to go here. 4 rounds to go. So pretty good stuff. If we get games even remotely as good as this, from here on out, it's going to be a lot of fun for Scrabble fans out there to sweat this. Hopefully I did this game justice. I was doing my best to follow along. It looks like Conrad is playing out some of the different scenarios that he could have. It looks like he was considering playing Equator in the end game, which that would have made it pretty easy for Dave to win, I think, against just a lone F. Even just saying like punts is probably gonna do it. Yeah, pretty easily. So Conrad was in trouble there, if not for that crazy slow playing sequence that capitalizes on Dave being in time pressure and having 5 consonants and only 1 vowel, which, I mean, that's tough. That's tough. That's gonna be tough to come up with that sequence. So yeah, I mean, this is like in a game like this, you go back to like, okay, both players played nearly flawlessly all game. And if I'm looking at this game from a perspective like of, if I'm Conrad and saying, well, how could I have done better in this game? There's pretty much no way you could have picked plays better. I'm really comfortable with all the plays Conrad picked in this game. Maybe instead of Vibey, you can play REI. It would have led to a very, very different end game for sure. But I think Vibey is a perfectly fine choice. It's very difficult for me to characterize that as a mistake. The only thing I would say is like to the extent that if you are at the absolute peak of your preparation and abilities, like could Conrad have played his bingos faster? Right? Could he have played Dispaced faster? Could he have played Footered faster? Could Dave have made a decision on the Moxie turn faster? Clearly, right? Like it took a long time on that turn. So, if obviously you want to do justice to all these tricky positions and make sure that you're iterating out all the ideas and figuring out, what gives you the best chance to win. But in a game like this, I actually feel like for really fast players out there, like the Nigel Richards and Adam Logans of the world, they play the early component of the game so fast that even if they get into situations like this that are super complicated in the end game, they pretty much always have the necessary time to figure those things out. I am not one of those players. I take forever on moves that have those types of nuances and try to figure it out. And I just hope and pray that the end game doesn't require me to calculate to this degree. So that means that in a game like this, I probably lose. And that's like that really marginal, that's a really marginal thing. Like there are not a lot of games like this that come up. So you can win a lot of games, but you can't win this one unless you play a really difficult game fast.